the agenda is shared in the chat, and if anyone on YouTube wants to tell me they can hear us, let me know. Okay, cool. So today we're gonna primarily talk. Well, we'll talk about whatever we want to talk about, but we'll talk briefly about Spadina and Zinken. African, correct me on that pronunciation, and general updates and kind of figure out things from there. Testing release updates. I am personally working on a V1.0 candidate release. There's a branch up and like a work in progress PR. This includes the LSV4 update. It's going to include a couple of the networking things that we've been working on, and I'm doing a pass on the consensus tests to see what holes there might be. I believe that Proto's been continuing work on the networking test stack, but has kind of continually interrupted by other higher priority items that show up. And as for the fork choice tests, they still sit in that independent repo, and you can consume them if you want. Proto, do you have any updates on networking side on the testing?
No, so you kind of summarized it well. Up until a while ago, I was working on this thing where you could have YAML files defining different clients and test network setups to then have some kind of integration testing. But then this kind of stalled because of higher priority things. I've been reviewing clients lately, not provide results, but this will take more time and I'll go through disclosures and things like that.
Great. Mehdi, you have an update for us, right?
Yep, thanks, Danny. Hey, everyone. I just pushed a new fuzzing blog post describing the latest updates on Beacon Fuzz about an hour ago now. I will link it to the chat shortly. We've been doing some BLS differential fuzzing, and I guess we can disclose some of the bugs that we found because they've been patched. So we identified two critical bugs on Blast, the supranational library that can effectively allow signature malleability. So they've been fixed, they've been patched, we're all good. We've only been targeting the Rust bindings at this stage, and hopefully in the next few weeks we'll make some time to have a crack at the other languages as well. We've been running our fuzzers on a dedicated AWS infrastructure. We caught two minor discrepancies between clients on slashing processing. So both the attester slashing and the proposer slashing. They're not directly exploitable per se, but they're pretty interesting. Highly recommend going through the blog post that I'll be linking shortly. I guess the good news is that we're seeing less and less exploitable vulnerabilities, so good job, everyone. We've also added Teku to Beacon Fuzz v2, our structural differential fuzzer. It was not straightforward, but we got there in the end. Thanks, Nat, for all the hard work there, and thanks the Teku team for their support throughout the process. We also plan on starting the work on our own custom fuzzing engine to replace libfuzzer, honkfuzz, and AFL, and that's about it. I'm happy to take any questions.
What's the advantage of a custom fuzzing engine here?
So there's a few things in terms of coverage. This will allow us to rotate and cycle through beacon states. So the way it works at the moment with AFL and libfuzzer, we're only mutating the actual SSZ container that we're processing. So if you're fuzzing the process attestation functions, for example, you're effectively mutating an attestation container. And by having our own custom fuzzing engine, we'll be able to essentially dictate how often we want to rotate and swap beacon states. Another benefit is going to be fuzzing speed. So we'll be able to load the beacon state in memory and not have to perform IOs, disk IOs for each implementation that we fuzz. And also we will be able to have both structural fuzzing and mutation-based fuzzing within the same targets. So yeah, keen to see how that will impact coverage, and we'll be working on this for the next few weeks.
Got it. Thank you. Any questions for Mehdi?
Yeah, one question on BLS, which implementations do you plan on supporting for the BLS fuzzing?
I think we'll focus on Blast. Seems to be the dominant library amongst all client implementations. So the idea is to make sure that the bindings are sort of the same across all languages. But the current BLS fuzzers that we have exercise Apache Milagro, Blast, and also the Zcash library.
I think Lodestar is using MCL because it's the only library with a WASM target.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep, it is something that we wanted to do, adding Harumi. We didn't get to it. Yeah, hopefully we will.
Great, thanks, Mehdi. Other testing and release items? Great. Okay, moving on to Spadina. Spadina actually looks very stable once we got about 70 epochs in. But as you are all very aware, had about 1/3 participation at Genesis, and I think this was the compounding of a number of errors kind of in the outer configuration and release process. I don't know if we need to belabor the point right now, but I think the result is that we are going to do this again, Zinken, and I have a blog post coming out shortly. The launchpad will be up today, Genesis deposits in the next week, and an intended Genesis on Monday the 12th. Obviously, there's always the chance that validators just aren't going to turn their nodes on. I don't think that's really the issue that we're looking for. I think we're instead looking for a lack of kind of errors being reported by validators that do turn their nodes on, which after the first few hours of the Spadina launch, it became pretty clear if you're monitoring some of the Discord channels that there were a number of validators that had trouble getting things running, and not just because of their own personal issues. So, Afri, you had some thoughts about maybe doing a call outside of this call to just kind of discuss release processes and things. You want to just give a quick on that? If you are available, I know that sometimes you don't have the ability to talk on these calls.
Yeah, sure. I think I had these thoughts, and I raised them a couple of weeks ago. I think early August. I will strongly believe that clients need to have some kind of stable release management so that we can have some kind of code freeze and work towards hardening these clients. And yeah, I was offering that we can maybe have a breakout call for just talking best practices here, or because most of the clients never have been used in production, so we need to get towards stable releases if we plan to release a mainnet soon. And yeah, I was just offering that we can like a short breakout call.
I'm down. I would suggest maybe we do this early next week. You and I can suggest a time and see if people are available.
Yeah, sure.
Great. Anything people want to talk about while we're here on Spadina? I know client updates, we'll probably talk about some of the individual issues that we saw, or anything as moved towards Zinken.
I have one more comment. We saw that 2 days Genesis delay is quite of short, and I was wondering if there are any thoughts in maybe in increasing the default Genesis delay significantly for future networks, or maybe even the default value. Yes.
Yeah. So we, as you know, because you set the config up in the Zinken release, we're going to do a 4-day, and that's partially to have a longer delay and partially to kind of keep things moving and not have a 7-day delay. But in my 1.0 candidate branch, based on our experiences with the 2-day delay and kind of just based on what we expect with Genesis, we're going to move towards a 7-day delay as the default in the mainnet configuration. And if we do any sort of rehearsals between now and Genesis, I would suspect that we do the 7-day delay. So I think everyone is generally in agreement that the 2-day scramble is not great. So default more for sure.
Some users were confused by the delay also, so maybe we need better communication. But some said, "Oh, I deposited on Monday and I'm not in Genesis. Why?"
Right,
From
I
the
saw
ETH
that
staker.
in a few places. I have the Zinken blog post I'm going to put out right after this call, and I have a few dates noted very explicitly about, and hopefully that'll help with the communication. But yeah, there's definitely some communication confusion there.
And maybe one generic comment would be that like maybe client teams need to think how they keep in touch with their users so that they can quickly notify users when there's a problem with a release and that they should update. I don't know. I feel like that was probably the biggest issue when getting it off the ground.
Absolutely. And a concrete follow-up on that is that in a couple of different conversations I've had with staking providers that have provided services in other chains, they said obviously there's a lot of noise. You're following GitHub, you're following Discord, you're following Twitter, but the one thing that they always see is if some software they're using has an email list and email updates. They kind of religiously will check their email. So an opt-in email list might be a good way to get in touch in case of critical issues.
Yeah, and maybe display that list on startup of the client or something so that you really remember that this is like an essential thing to sign up to if you are serious about staking.
So I've been collected the some feedback of the Spadina rehearsal launch, and this is the notes that I've shared to some people. And so thanks for people for giving the feedback. And if you have some more input to help us to improve the progress, and feel free to comment or just edit the note. And also, thanks to Pico on the ETH Staker Discord that he suggests that we can have a checklist for the stakers to check what else, what thing I have to do before Genesis is generated or after the Genesis is generated. So we are the EF researchers are drafting the checklist and hope to share with the client teams maybe next week.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Anything else on Spadina or Zinken? And we will plan on maybe having a breakout call on Monday, Tuesday about just release processes and information sharing around that, and talk about some best practices. Okay, great. Moving on. Client updates. Let's start with Prism.
Hey guys, Terrence from Prismatic Labs. So after Spadina, we had a post-mortem and we did share it. So if you haven't had the link, please check out our Discord. So we basically review all the items that we thought we could have done better, such as being more prepared in terms of the docs and better communication and more vocal to the stakers. So we created a general testnet readiness checklist and then we shared that among the client teams and we're looking for feedback on that. We also aligned the code to spec version 12.3, and that's running on master right now. We added the with subjectivity checkpoint support. So we input a block root and the epoch, and when the node syncs to that point and say the block root is different, it will fail right away. The voluntary exit feature ready on the other client, and the doc is ready on that. So feel free to try that out. We're also going through our second round of audit. So we're getting all the feedbacks coming in. So we're fixing the bugs and then enhancing our test suite on that. So last but not least, just general bug fixes. So yeah, thanks.
Great. Thank you, Terrence. Nimbus.
Hi. So we had our last phase of audit that ended. Next step is fixes and a fix review that is scheduled 2 weeks from now. We also fixed and significantly improved stability with a lot of resource leak fix done. And now, according to Eth2.0 for those who participate, Nimbus is apparently using less memory on average than other clients. We are also in a heavy round of polish, so that the user experience is significantly improved, in particular regarding to logging and disk space. And like Prism, we have our weak subjectivity sync that is work in progress. It's now living in a PR. And we also updated the collaborative repo with some Medasha trusted checkpoint so that it can be tested.
Cool. Thank you, Mami. Lodestar.
Hey, so we tried to participate in some small way on Spadina. We were running 4 nodes, and our kind of our progress is that basically our node is still not stable, and so we were unable to participate with the 4 nodes. We were able to create the genesis properly, but weren't able to stay up to the head. So that's just ongoing work that we're working on to get our node stable. As far as what we've been working on recently, we added weak subjectivity chain start, where you can pass in a state, a known finalized good state, and start chain from there. We finished up the standard API, implementing all the endpoints, and we've been doing a lot of refactoring of our chain, just kind of the core of everything, adding custom errors, and just cleaning things up. And going forward with the things that are still in progress and we're going into are our Gossip Sub 1.1 integration, still not done, almost there. And we're going to be working on slashing protection, interchange, and the disk v5.1 upgrade as well.
Cool, thanks, Kim. Do you have an intuition on the current bottlenecks in syncing Spadina?
Yeah, it's like I think that just our syncing strategy in general hasn't been too great because we've not really known, I guess, what's happening to the blocks as we're feeding them into our chain. And so I'm hopeful that like now that we're getting kind of proper errors as to like what's wrong, we'll be able to like, know, okay, we don't actually have the parent, so we need to like we can try to do like a parent sync backwards, or well, we didn't have enough information to really make a smart syncing algorithm. But now we have those errors. We have some like rough peer scoring, and so I think it's going to be a lot easier to revisit just the whole algorithm.
Got it. Great, thank you. Lighthouse.
Hey all. So the Spadina launch went pretty smoothly on our end. Our validators are performing quite well, as can be seen on the Fly validator leaderboard. I guess the only hiccup is that at least one user didn't set up their data tier correctly, and as a result, couldn't find peers. Their node was still using the Medalla setup. We are working towards pre-mainnet audits from Trail of Bits and NCC, both starting next week. And we're planning a big breaking release, a v0.3.0 release, which will include the standard HTTP API. So we have the partial implementation ready, and Paul is working towards the full implementation. We'll also include the validator client API that will be consumed by our web user interface. We'll incorporate a new directory structure, which will hopefully mitigate the hiccup I mentioned earlier. We'll include as well the slashing interchange format that Michael has been working on. Herman has also been working on a remote signer for the validator client. We're hoping to integrate that into this release as well. Same as the other clients, I guess, been working on a basic weak subjectivity verification and some caching for validator keys to mitigate the extensive script loading times with large validator counts. In networking land, we're up to date with 0.2.3. Age has implemented disk v5.1, well, I guess up to the changes made today by Felix. It's not in Lighthouse yet. We still want to do some more interrupt testing before. We've been testing our Gossip Sub 1.1 scoring parameters on Medasha and Spadina. Edge also just completed a few hours ago the UPnP support, and we've also been fixing a couple of sync bugs. That's about it.
Cool. Thank you, Mehdi. Teku.
That's me. Apologies if I'm slurring my words. I just had a tooth extracted and half my face is numb. Forgive me. The main things we've been working on, Discovery v5.1 is basically done. Not yet running by default, but nearly there bar the last few updates. A lot of work on weak subjectivity sync. We now have hidden CLI options to handle the checkpoint. We have internal weak subjectivity checks in place. That is, we check the sync against a given checkpoint. We check that our peers are consistent with the checkpoint, and we handle the case that the last finalized state is outside the weak subjectivity period. Next step is to be able to start syncing from a given checkpoint state itself. We've been implementing some validator performance metrics just in our console for sort of immediate feedback, and of course doing all the Spadina launch prep. We got our draft audit report from QuantStamp yesterday, so we're just digesting that. Nothing too scary there, so it should be fairly straightforward to deal with. Next work is finish implementing the standard API and finish up, make our kind of validator split out, bring it up to production quality. That's it for Teku. The Australians seem to be in holiday season at the moment, so we've had a little less progress than usual.
Gotcha. Thank you, Ben. And congratulations on the tooth pull.
Thank you.
And looks like we have Nethermind today, right? Or no, we don't. Never mind. Great. Okay, I think that was everyone. Moving on. Research updates. On phase 1 spec stuff, there's still a PR. I think I mentioned this last time. The intention is to, we're going to leave that PR out of dev and out of master until we do a 1.0 release, just kind of keep things cleaner. But we are now generating phase 1 tests. I think those were out in the last release. So you can check that out if you're following along progress there. Otherwise, yeah, Mami, please.
Just a quick note about the phase 1 tests. They made us an issue on Azure because they take 3 gigabytes and we went over budget.
3 gigabytes. Went over which budget?
When they compress, you have 10 gigabytes on Azure. So if you want to use phase 1 tests, you likely need to maybe it's better to separate phase 0 and phase 1 so that we can download them separately.
Okay. We also, this highlights kind of a fundamental issue, and I think we're just going to keep hitting it, about the structure of our the tests and how there are largely, especially in like start states, there's a largely duplication in that data, which I think we're hitting the point in which it starts to become a problem. So we might spend a little bit of time after phase 0 launch thinking about some of the structures and testing and how we might deduplicate data. So essentially have like a repository in the tests of start states and reference them instead of dumping them in every single test. But that's not going to happen in the next 2 months. But thanks for the warning there.
Well, one immediate solution here, or one hot fix, is to compress the states, because most of these states just contain a lot of zeros.
Right. Okay. But on to actual research updates. Does anybody have some stuff to share?
Yes, here you see, I want to report. I don't know if this is research or network, but basically we continue with work on the crawler, network crawler, and we are basing this on Rumor. We are managed to get a certain number of peers and get the decentralized messages from the Eth2 topics. I will be posting the link to the crawler that we are developing, and we found a couple of small bugs that we have already commented to Proto, and they have been fixed. We also propose a couple of features and changes in the gossip messages, and we are working on those currently. So that's from my side.
Cool, thanks, Leo. On the phase 1, ETH1, ETH2 merge work, I think kind of had a 3 to 4 week hiatus on digging into that stuff once we got the demo done. People working on other work. But we've identified a list of like 5 or 6 items that are the next things to attack on the R&D. So we'll be digging into those and probably writing a little bit more about what's going on in ETH research to update people. All right, anything else here? Great. Networking. There's still kind of some movement around the 5.1, this 5.1 spec. I know that Felix is trying to get this thing merged and get that wire format completed very, very soon. But keep your eye on there. If there's any place to give some feedback and then do some interop testing. Other networking items. Okay. Any questions, comments about spec in general? Fantastic. Anything anyone wants to talk about? Any lingering concerns? Any issues they want to bring up about Zinken? Anything at all? Okay, great. I'm going to put out a blog post about Zinken today, and we will handle things moving forward next week and plan for a Genesis on the following Monday, October the 12th. Thank you, everyone. I will talk to you all very soon. Take care.
Thanks.